Hi, I'm Dr. Fred DiDomenico.
And I'm Dr. Douglas DeSiena.
And this is Resurrecting Our Freedom podcast. Why are we giving this podcast? Because it seems like the whole world is burning down around us, and we are going to rise. We're going to resurrect and empower you in your spirituality, your health, and your personal freedom so we can take our life back, right? Yep. Take control and make a difference in the world.
There are constant outside forces which are removing our personal freedoms and liberties on a daily, regular basis.
We hate that.
And it doesn't look like it's getting any better.
No, it doesn't.
If there's anything more anti-American, it's reducing our liberties.
Exactly. That's true. So, hey, man, all the darkness is being exposed, the curtains being pulled back, darkness, the deception, the lies, the evil, all these things have been going on for years and now being exposed, and we're shining the light on it. So resurrecting our freedom is about being the light, not the dark, understanding the dark, but knowing that we are above it. We're going to get through it. And there is a greater world that we're here to create, not us, but all of us are here to create on the other side. So in the past podcast, hey, the last two, we talked about all the contradictions in COVID, the whole timeline and history of COVID. We talked about information on the vaccinations, what's really going on, what we're not being told, but what's really happening behind the scenes. And now we want to give something a little more empowering, because now that you know what you don't want, let's move into more something that you do want. So we're going to go through the 4 S's.
4 S's.
4 S's, right? Not only to get through flu season, but to gain the confidence in our body and health that no matter what's going on outside, what's inside of us is bigger and more powerful than anything outside of us, including a virus.
Dr. Fred, when God was putting us together, when he was wonderfully knitting ourselves, did he forget the immune system? Did that just just a foregone thought? We don't have an immune system anymore. Or do we still have an empowered immune system?
I think we have one.
I think we have one.
That was when God was knitting it. He put a hole right in my shorts right here. It's like, I need to talk to him about that, how that happened.
We'll someday meet up and we'll talk about it.
But that's another story.
So let's talk about what we can do to increase one's wellness so that we can empower ourselves, our immune system. That doesn't require us injecting an mRNA vaccine, which again, we have no idea what's going to do to the human race. It's an experiment on the human condition.
Exactly, and that's an outside-in approach. So before we were actually when we were actually talking about this, you used the metaphor, the analogy of the Titanic,
right?
And that was supposed to be the hubris, that word, unsinkable ship. And so it was funny because that, like you said, as the ship was sinking, and I'm like, yeah, I understand the history. I saw the movie Titanic. I saw Leonardo and what's Rose or whatever her name was. So as the ship was sinking, people didn't believe it was sinking.
Right.
And so here's now all these boats, and the smart people get off the Titanic. They're in the boats, but the boats were half empty.
Right.
Because people really didn't believe it. And isn't that what's going on? I remember a couple months ago, actually, as my sister said, because we were talking about the government. Well, the government would look out for our best interests, and then my response was not good. Actually, I had to apologize to her, even though she was oh my God, are you crazy? It's like, and that's what it is. People are sitting on the Titanic thinking, well, what we need is a vaccination, an experiment. I want to be a guinea pig, but they don't think like that, because if they had to, then they would have to take responsibility and do something else. And I'm not dogging on people that want to get a vaccination. And hey man, if you want to be part of the experiment, it's all good. I just pray for you in the years to come. But this is not supposed to be about vaccination. So
right.
We'll just put that opinion aside, although it'll keep coming back, I'm sure.
This is about getting off of a sinking ship.
Yes.
And this is not...
Vaccination has to be on that sinking
This
ship.
is not a put down in any way, shape, or form. All one has to do is look at what country produces and consumes the most pharmaceuticals of any other country in the world. And what country is that?
Where are my feet right now?
That's the United States of America. And then let's look at where we're at relative to life expectancy. We're in the 50s. We're terrible. And then...
I mean, we're 50 countries down.
Right. We are terrible. We spend 4 times the amount of money in healthcare, and we are terrible. But here's even a worse stat. And that is out of the 10 equally industrialized nations, equally rich nations, in terms of infant mortality, out of the 10 other similar rich countries, where do you think we rate at in terms of infant mortality? That is, we are number 10. We are dead last. Pardon the pun. We are last.
Yeah. By the way, infant mortality is a statistic that they use to evaluate the general health of the country.
Right.
So when you look at the top 10, and I don't know what all 10 of those are, I could probably guess 10 industrialized country in the world, we are the lowest one on health.
Right. Well, we're 50 on health and on dead last. The only 11
On
countries.
life expectancy.
Right. And in terms of infant mortality, that is the ability, if the baby was born today, the predictive ability for that baby to live to 1 year of age. If you're born in this country, out of 11 countries, we are rated 11th in terms of the ability or the possibility of making it to your first year birthday.
And we also have the most aggressive vaccination policies. However, we're not going into vaccination.
I do have to
we
say
already know that's on the Titanic.
I do have to say one thing that's fascinating to me. The number one, the lowest infant mortality rate, which has the highest ability to go to their first year birth, is Japan.
Right.
I find it interesting that the United States is trying to persuade Japan to assume the same aggressive vaccine schedule that we use.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't you? You'd go to the top guy and you go, "Hey, man, why don't you, you're kicking our butt over here. Let's bring you over to our side so you don't make us look too bad." That's just strategy, man. That's political strategy. Like, oh, these guys are kicking our ass. Hopefully, too many people don't know about it. We got to bring them down.
It's actually, I know we're making light of it, but it's actually very sad. And it's sad because of the amount of sickness and the disease and the so much we can prevent. And anyway, let's get off this Titanic. Let's get on to the freaking lifeboat. Let's get on the lifeboat. That's why I love the word lifeboat. Let's get on it and let's set these people free. So let's talk about the 4 S's, shall we?
Lifeboat is really the love boat.
The love boat. Too bad we can't have an acronym for
way
love.
back in the 70s.
It always ended good. Have you noticed that? The love boat? Everything came together at the very end.
Yeah, it did. So anyway, we'll go into that that's another boat podcast that we'll go into, another love boat. So what's the first S? You came up, so I want to talk about the four
I
S's.
did. Let's talk about stress as the first S. Because everybody agrees, I think the stat is that about 90% of all doctors' visits are a result of stress. And we all know stress is a part of this current lifestyle. And the one thing I ask my patients, are you under more stress since this pandemic or less stress? And guess what? Everybody says.
More stress.
We're under more stress. And so there's not anyone that I'm aware of. If you ask the common citizen, do you think that stress makes you sick? And guess what everybody says?
Yes.
100%. So if that's true, then why don't we do things to mitigate against stress?
Well, I just gave a Tuesday morning transformation. If you go to YouTube and look up TMTs, Dr. Fred DiDomenico, one was 3 steps. I forget what the title was. 3 steps to getting through stress or something like that.
Did you say how to get on that? You said it so quickly. I didn't even catch it.
It's on YouTube, Tuesday morning transformation, TMT. Go to YouTube, Dr. Fred DiDomenico, TMT. It's on there today.
And I love
November
them, by the
12th.
way.
Thank you.
They're very
inspiring.
So
really, everybody knows that stress breaks you down. Yeah. So, and there's all kinds. We're not here to give you, a big long lecture because we could spend 6 hours. You could do like a whole weekend just on that. But what I want to give you about that is the spiritual principles, because we are in a world where, again, how do we start this podcast? Man, the curtain is opening. And we're seeing the darkness, we're seeing the deception, we're seeing the evil things that have been going on for years. We're seeing what the politicians are doing. We're seeing the manipulation in the election. We're seeing all these things going on, and we're seeing communism and things trying to move into the country. So, and there's so much uncertainty, and the world is changing so fast that the first thing to realize is what a lot of people say, and I hear this all the time, we just want things to be normal again. Mm-hmm. So, like January 2020, a year ago, before this COVID thing really hit, when it was on its way from Italy or wherever, that was a different reality. January 2019, we didn't even know we'd be going through any of this. So it's like calmly, you're in a canoe or a raft and you're calmly going down the river because there's not a big current and you're enjoying it. Wow, it's so pretty, and the butterflies and all that stuff, right? And so there was no stress. And then all of a sudden, man, the beginning of last year, the current starts picking up, and next thing you know, we're in a class 5 rapids.
Right.
And so you need a different strategy. And there's way more stress. Now, if we use a whitewater rafting analogy, because it's anybody's that you've been whitewater rafting before, you got the guy in the back, and he's basically guiding it, right? And what's he doing? He's guiding you through the rapids, and then all of a sudden, okay, 3 on the left, 3 paddles. Because the boulder's coming up, they go 1, 2, 3, gets them back, and then what do? They ride it, and then 2 on the left. See, that's what we're doing. If people want to go back to their old reality, that stress will absolutely break you down because that reality is gone. Mm-hmm. It will never be here again. But our mind, our basic instinct is survival. We like what's known. We want to go back to what's known because it gives us certainty, and this is what's going to break your health down because we're not going back there. It's never going to be like that again. We have to create a new world, and this is why people are frustrated. They're depressed because if they're stuck to what they know and they're trying to hang on to what's already gone, then all they're finding is empty hands, no hope, no faith. And then they're going to get sick.
Right.
And that's it. And so I went through 3 steps of how do you create a new reality. And I'm just going to make this quick, but I guarantee you if you follow these steps, you will be enlightened, you'll have a new perspective, and you'll be able to navigate your way through these rapids because we know if you have the power and the confidence on your health from the inside out, we can go through anything on the outside. Didn't we learn through COVID? I mean, you're a practicing chiropractor, right? That our health is our most important thing. The confidence in our health and the health of our family is the number one most important thing. And there's an old adage, a man with his health has 1,000 dreams. A man without it has 1. And that's what we learned. That if you don't have that, you got 1 dream, and that's to try and get healthy. But what's Resurrecting Our Freedom about? About helping you have 1,000 dreams. And that's why we're giving this podcast. So what are the 3 steps? 1, you have to let go of everything you know. I'm going to repeat that. You have to let go of everything you know. Why? Because everything you know has an association with the past. And everything you know is when the river is calm, this is what you know. But this is not going to get you through a class 5 rapids. You have to let go of what you know, and you have to develop a new strategy, a new identity, right?
Right.
You have to have a different strategy to get your way through the rapids because that's where we're in right now. We have no idea where this country is going to be. Hey, we talk 30 days from now, tomorrow, this afternoon. I mean, Trump, the military, the insurrection, right? The whole military is in the country. The National Guard could be in your city with martial law that fast if there's riots. So we have no idea what's going to happen. So what do we got to do? We have to let go of what we already know. And so we're not hanging on to the past so we can create a new strategy now. So how do we do that? Well, the second step, number 1, the dumber you are, the more successful you'll be, meaning let go of everything you know. Number 2, you got to stay in presence. Stay present. Stay in the present moment. And as we stay present, that means we're not in the past. We're not anxious about the future, but in presence, we can find joy and appreciation. So if you just look around to all the things around you and say, I appreciate that we're here. We're in this podcast. We get to share our passion and purpose and solutions that may be able to change people's lives. I appreciate that my nephew Dalton is over there taping this and we're getting this done. I appreciate that we're taking the time to do this. I appreciate this house. And then you find yourself in joy. Now, what that does when you have internal joy, all of a sudden, new ideas, new identity, new creative things are going to come up. And that state is going to be a much more powerful state when you're in presence, you let go of everything you know, and you're in joy about things that are new. And if you look at things around you in your environment and in your own thoughts that are new with appreciation and joy, you're going to create a whole new life. You're going to do things differently. So it takes discipline to break patterns. I'll just say this one last thing. I know that we get into these patterns, like Dalton and I go work out. I tend to pull into a similar spot. I'm within 2 spots every day in the gym. I like this certain spot because I pull through. I want to go straight out. I don't want to back up. There's all these cars. I don't want a bunch of cars next to my car. Not that it really matters, but I just like a little bit of shoulder room. So he'll verify, man, I go to the same spot. So that tells me then tomorrow when we do this, or the next day when we do this, I need to break pattern. You need to break your patterns to create something new. So 1, forget everything you know. 2, stay present, find joy, and break your repetitive patterns. 3 is know that God always wins. Mm-hmm. What's that mean? Truth always prevails. What's that mean? You can't go against universal law. You can't try and row your way up a class 5 rapids. It's not going to happen. You're going to kill yourself. And that's what hanging on to the past does. You're in the rapids, man. You got to guide your way through it. And we have to go through it. But when you know that God always wins, in other words, truth always prevails. Evil, deception, lies, they may be temporary, but they can't last. Because the love of God and the universe and life force energy always seeks truth. So what do you know? When you're in the middle of the rapids, the calm is coming. And if you know that, then you have hope, you have faith, you know that the universe is always going to prevail in truth, it's always going to end up in love, and all this too, and this too shall pass. So what do? Let go of what you know, stay present, find joy in what you're doing, break your repetitive patterns, and then have faith to know that the river is going to be calm. We just have to get through this right now. And if you can do that, man, your anxiety, your frustration, your depression, all those emotionally suppressive things are actually going to create health in your body rather than sickness and disease.
That was awesome, Dr. Fred. I give you an applause for that right there. Okay, I'm just going to add a few things to that because I have a few thoughts. And number 1, I think to reduce stress for my life, since I started doing journaling, and every single morning I try to write out a gratitude list. And studies show that if a person is looking for things that they are grateful for, it's hard to be in a state of stress and despair at the same time. So I have a morning ritual. You know what? One of the things I've learned in my life, if I bookend my life with morning rituals and evening rituals, those 2 things I have certainty of, because I can always achieve those 2 things. And at least for me in my life, if I can do my morning gratitude list, I start my day with a little brighter kind of period. And I also want to share an acronym that I've had. It's the acronym of HOPE. It's having opportunistic positive expectations. You know, there's a hope that we use in English, and then there's a hope that's used in Greek. The English hope is like a wish, like I wish for a better day. The hope, and you're talking about this in terms of our spirituality, the hope in Greek is a whole different word. It's an expectation. Like we can say we have the hope of heaven, or it'd be like saying, I have a hope that the sun is going to rise tomorrow. It's an expectation. It's not a wish. The English version of hope is like a wish, but we want to use the original version of the word hope, which is a positive, expectant state.
Excuse me, meaning it's already done.
It's already done.
So it's coming.
It's coming. And we know it's going to play out. It's going to unfold in the appropriate way. The challenge, Fred, though, is that people wake up and they watch the news, which get off your evening mainstream media news. Or morning, thank you. If every morning you look up, the first thing that hits you is, these are how many people died of, a COVID death. And this is the hospitalization rate. When in the world have we ever been inundated with that kind of negative news from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed? It's freaking people out. It's actually making us sick, which is such a paradox.
Right.
Anyway, so that's stress. You want anything more to say about stress?
No, let's go. What's the next one?
So stress leads to, I think, a loss of sleep. So we're under a stress state, which is really a fear of the uncertain is really what stress is to some degrees. It takes us away. You said it so beautifully. You said it takes us from the present. Remember? Mm-hmm. I love that. So we want to be in the present, connected to the breath, And it's so important that we have that faith that things are going to unfold, which allows us to be out of a fight-flight mode. Because if you're in a fight-flight mode, as you're about to sleep, then your body's going to be alert, waiting for the next bad thing to happen, and you're going to be having trouble falling asleep.
Now, you may not be conscious of the next bad thing that happens, but that's what's happening in your nervous system.
Correct. And we're going to talk about the subluxation, which is the fourth S, in a second. But the bottom line is stress, if you don't resolve it, following the 3 keys that you suggested, which is awesome, it's going to lead to insomnia.
Well, and also what you said, having those bookends. Man, if you start the morning in a state of peace, you're going to create better things. And I have the same life. But I always, at the end of the day, I have gratitude. I meditate. I visualize. I feel my spirit. And I feel God's presence inside me that always raises my consciousness and creates a feeling of peace. And, of course, I do my spinal stuff, lay on the dental roll. And, of course, we'll talk about that. So that's the whole thing is if you're anxious, you're under your sympathetic nervous system, man. Whatever is going through your mind doesn't really matter. Your nervous system is under stress.
Right.
And if you don't repair your body, you're going to get sick. So we know that.
So sleep. So that's really important.
So bookends on rituals.
Yeah. And the only other thing really quick I do on sleep, just a personal thing I do something called an 8-4 breath as I'm about to fall asleep. So that's a 4-state inhalation. So I count to 4 as I inhale, and I do a protracted exhalation on a count of 8. We know that the exhalation increases parasympathetic. That's that away from fight flight. So I would just encourage our listeners and our followers to engage in breath control.
Yep, there you go.
So is there anything else relative to sleep? And there's so much we can say about sleep.
Yeah, there's so much nutritionally and all that. But that's not why we're here.
No, just know that use strategies to fall asleep. And there's more to talk about that. You can find that on the internet, but just make sure you get your sleep.
So the important thing that we're going through here is not, hey, man, if you take CBD and use this product,
Right.
and, hey, that's all great. We have a whole nutritional status, but we're here for lifestyle mindset. This is what we're talking about is more mindset. And how do you create rituals and a lifestyle that promotes health?
Correct. Although I did want to just talk about a basic supplement I think everybody needs to do.
Well, that's the next S, isn't it?
That is an SS,
Okay,
which is supplements. Only because I'm so frustrated with just one particular, I mean, there's all kinds of things like zinc. There's vitamin C. In fact, there's a study that just came out that zinc and C working together are very synergistic. You even see medical doctors talking about zinc as part of the repertoire now for COVID. But the challenge I have is actually with vitamin D, which is actually not a vitamin, it's a hormone. And I just read today that now they are using injections of vitamin D with COVID patients. Dr. Fred, 84% of people who are in a hospital for this virus have a 17 nanogram per milliliter. The healthy state for vitamin D should be between 60 and 80. The average hospital...
So they're low on vitamin D. A fraction of normal.
A fraction of normal of vitamin D. So do you think it's going to be working okay for people to, once they get into the hospital, oh, maybe we should give them vitamin D? We've known that vitamin D prevents respiratory viruses. We also know that vitamin D prevents the cytokine inflammatory storm. And this one other thing, I just have to say this, we're not medical doctors. And so we're not allowed to prescribe or take a person off of medication. But I would just say this, if I were a patient who's in that comorbid kind of paradigm, people who take an ACE inhibitor increase the risk of viral infections. It's even called
what kind of inhibitor?
ACE inhibitor for high blood pressure.
Okay, there you go.
So people are on that particular...
Speak English, man.
On that particular, well, if they're on it, I hope they would know it, and they should talk to their doctor and think about maybe.
Yeah, but other people don't know it. Maybe their parents or their sisters or their whatever's on it. So it's medication for blood pressure problems.
Yeah, so that blocks.
Which is one of the top causes of why people get sick with this virus,
Right.
cardiovascular problems.
Right. So anyway, so I recommend people looking into making sure that their D levels are optimal because again, if we can prevent up to 84% of hospitalizations with that one inexpensive supplement, then get your numbers checked and start getting on that.
Well, and so that's one of the reasons we were talking before. Why do people get sick in the winter? Well, there's a number of reasons. Number one is you don't have as much sun. Not only are the days shorter, if you're in a place where there's winter, man, it's cloudy, there's storms. So you're not out with your shirt off, because I believe it's your torso that absorbs the most vitamin D. And so you have to supplement. So if you're not paying attention to that, then also low vitamin D is depression. So not only because it can cause emotional stress, but you're going through a world, you're going to be chewing up your body's going to be eating that stuff up. Right. So now you're in the winter, you're not getting sun, you're not outside with your shirt off in the sunshine. It's 17 degrees. And
you're not exercising, gyms are closed, you're stuck inside.
Yeah, and hopefully if you keep up that exercise, but then also you have the external environment of just cold weather as a stress. And that puts a stress on us. So here we have all these different stresses, and that's why there's a flu season.
Right.
It's not like, when I used to practice chiropractic, it's not like, well, there's a virus, even though they say it's flying over from China. That's not how they work. Viruses just don't fly across the whole frickin' ocean, especially the ocean, because there's salt air. That would kill it immediately, right? Do viruses, what do they just get in the trade winds and they're like bees from Africa and they're just migrating to jump on people? Is that what happens? That's not how viruses work.
No, I think viruses are always around. Again, one's immune system
It's 10 to the 31, by the way. That's 1 with 31 zeros.
Yep,
That's
yep.
how many viruses are around in this room right now. 10 to 31, 10 to 30. It's like 10 to the 90.
Yeah.
We're exchanging viruses right now. How cool are we?
Again, it's as Louis Pasteur said, the father of the germ theory. It is not the seed, it's the soil. The germs are merely opportunistic vectors of disease. They themselves are not the cause of disease. That's Louis Pasteur.
Exactly. So the thing is, there isn't a flu season. There's a season where people get sick because of very specific reasons that's not related to a virus that exists in January that doesn't exist in June. Now, actually, that may not be completely accurate, because there's a lot of seasonal viruses that they don't live above 70 degrees, which is called SARS-CoV-2 or coronavirus. The half-life over 70 degrees is so dramatic. So we live down by the beach. I mean, all those days where it's 90 degrees, I'm friggin' dying, walking down by the beach in my bathing suit, without a shirt. And there was some people walking around with masks. It's like, you don't know anything about viruses. And I mean, I'm not dogging on those people, or you look in Whole Foods, and it's like, it can't exist. There is not one single virus in the air around here, because it was like 95 degrees. It doesn't exist. So people walking through the parking lot with a mask
UV,
on.
number one, and
UV.
So you have ultraviolet light, which is, as you know, antimicrobial. And then you have the heat.
That was another big word. Man, you're just full of big words today. What's antimicrobial mean? It kills stuff. It means, like bacteria and viruses, dead. That's what it means. That's an antimicrobial. There it is. Smash.
Thanks for the clarification. Yeah. So what's the next S, Dr. Fred?
Subluxation. Oh my God, there's a Latin
There's
word.
a big
What's that
word.
mean?
Big word. What does that
This is it's only something we dedicated our whole life
This
purpose
is it.
to.
That's why
all.
we saved this for last, because I really believe that this is by far the most important strategy we can implement. To
Okay, let me
maintain
correct. It's not a belief system. It's science.
Yeah, correct.
So this isn't an opinion. How do we know? Because life is changing. Do we know more today than we've ever known before? Do you think there's more research? You can Google this stuff. And so there's a whole medical science. It's called neuroimmunology. And medical doctors, here's what they're not telling you while the Titanic is sinking. What they're saying is, don't go on the chiropractic boat. No, we're fine. The Titanic is fine. Even God can't sink the Titanic. Well, there was their first mistake. Now God's like, okay.
I'll show
Now, I mean, I was just having fun before, but now you guys have gone way, way too far. So anyway, I don't even know where I was. So anyway, neuroimmunology means the nervous system, spinal cord and nervous system, and the immune system work together so congruently they're considered the same system. So the health of your brain, spinal cord, and nerves will determine the health of your immune system. Now, what affects the brain, spinal cord, nerves? Spinal structure. Isn't this amazing where they show the relationship between posture and the strength of your immune system and your ability to move, function, not only just chronic pain, disability, but even the amount of your life, even the lifespan. That spinal structure can determine your lifespan. The more your spine ages, the more that you age.
And the Journal of the American Geriatrics Association showed that people with the greatest amount of kyphosis, that's that mid-back hump that some people get who are not under chiropractic care, the greater the hump, it can reduce up to 15 years off of your life expectancy.
Yeah, at least.
That was a medical
study. Know when
study.
you see people and they're walking around like this and they got the cane and they're moving now, are they just flying along like this? Hey, how you doing? I'm having a great day. Here's how they would have to move because their spine is so fused. Like, hey, having a great day. Hey, you're walking a little slow. Let me just get right by you right here. Is that what they're doing? Or are you waiting for them to get off the plane? And I'm not judging them. I'm just saying they are all around you. You know how this works. Because, when that person gets up out of the seat before you and you've been sitting in a middle seat for 6 hours, you're like, get me off the plane. I don't usually get middle seats, but, you get the basic idea. And then it's like, oh, man, we're waiting for the person in the wheelchair. Now, the way I feel about those is not frustration. I feel compassion. Because actually, we as chiropractors didn't get this message out there. And the reason they have to wait for a wheelchair is I believe we as chiropractors have failed as a profession. In spite of the fact, it doesn't matter that medicine tries to suppress this. I mean, we've already been through that. Medicine actually supports it, but they are not going to show you this on CNN. They are not going to show you this on NBC or CBS. Why? Because who determines what gets played, what gets shown on that? The sponsors, which is who's the number one sponsor of mainstream media?
Pharmaceutical industry.
Pharmaceutical companies.
And what's the main thing happens to people who are under regular neurological corrective care is they get off of medications. And it happens all the time.
That would be a problem.
So we are not their best friends relative to their financial strength.
No, we're not their best friend, but guess what? We are your best friend.
So we set you free and we give you liberty. Good. That was really good. And
can we be best friends?
They want.
I really need more friends. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sometimes your brain, I like to examine it.
Yeah.
What goes on in there?
It's my ADD coming around.
It's so brilliant. It's just really funny.
You should be on my accountability calls. I always get dogged on. What are you doing this week, Fred? Well, I got this idea. No, you don't. Yeah, I really do. No, God's telling me to do it. No, you don't. You don't have that idea. But I know God's telling me. No, he isn't. That's how my accountability.
We're talking about subluxation right now, Dr.
Got it. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, the whole idea is we can do such amazing things to set their stress free in the nerve system, to allow their body to function as God intended it. Because here's what we know. We know that the body that is functioning at a higher level, energetically, neurologically, physically, is not going to get sick, because sick people get sick, well people don't.
That's right. Healthy people don't get sick. That's all you have to know. How many words is that? Healthy people don't get sick. That's 5 words. I can do that. I didn't even have to pull my shoes off for that one. Healthy people don't get sick. From coronavirus, from anything. Healthy people don't get sick. Undiagnosed, unhealthy people that appear to be healthy on the outside get sick. How do I know that? I was married to one. She looked like a freaking Barbie doll, 44 years old. 5'6", 120 pounds, blue, la, 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 life of the party, died of cancer. And you know what everybody said? You would have been the last person that I would have suspected. But you know what? They didn't know her. She had a lot of emotional stress. She had a traumatic childhood. She had a subluxated spine. It's funny because before we got married, she used to come in all the time, blah, 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 and actually put Almost started putting it. She had a kyphotic, a backwards neck. I started putting a curve in her neck. And then we get married. Nope. Doesn't want to be, now I'm working in the office doing this. Doesn't get adjusted. Lost her curve. Never came back. Died of cancer.
So sad.
I'm not saying that was the cause. She had emotional reasons. She had physical reasons. She had dietary reasons. She didn't have the lifestyle mindset. She didn't have bookend rituals. She wasn't able to stay in present. Her past came through and so much she couldn't let go of the pain of her past. And I really believe that that was the primary reason that she died of cancer. And that was the reason she didn't want to fight it. She was already emotionally worn out.
So true. So true. And that just gets you to the point that we are all about, in every possible way, setting people free physically, spiritually, and emotionally.
And secondly, here's the most important thing. Put one of your guns up. He's 60 freaking years old.
I'm going to have guns like Dr. Fred.
He's 60 years old. If that ain't a testimonial for chiropractic, of course, I color my hair so I'd be a little bit more gray. Hey, that is a testimonial, 60 years old. That's chiropractic.
It's a beautiful thing. Chiropractors, I said this many times, but I was 17 years old and I tried to take my life. I lost hope because the medical doctor told me, you know what? We've done everything we can for you. It's just in your head. So the hubris.
So you were on the sinking Titanic.
I was on the Titanic and they were going to let me sink on it. And a chiropractor pulled me out of it and saved my life.
Said get on the chiropractic boat.
And I've since then have dedicated my life to the lifeboat, to giving people hope, to give people hope. And I hope this message gives you hope.
There's only one way you can have expectation. You just got to do it. Mm-hmm. So where do they find a great chiropractor? Corrective care chiropractor, not just any chiropractor, but a chiropractor that takes x-rays, look at their curves, gives them treatment, and change those curves, bring them back to a optimally healthy spine so they can have an optimally healthy life.
So they can go to idealspine.com, and they can also go to the International Chiropractic Association website.
So is it ICA.com? What's the website? Or International Chiropractic Association?
.org.
.org. International Chiropractic Association.org.
Or
you can go to Ideal Spine and look for a doctor in your area, cbppatient.com. You can look at that, plug in your zip code. Those are corrective care chiropractors. And, this is a time, man, where we learn one thing, that if there's something outside of us that's bigger than what's inside of us, we're going to live in fear. Mm-hmm. We can't live in faith. Then we live in fear. The anxiety, not only the anxiety and the stress is going to break us down, but then we tend to not live a more empowered life, and then we tend to follow the herd. And following the herd right now, the herd is on the Titanic, and the Titanic is sinking. So we're here to give you lifeboats. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is gain confidence in the health for you and your family. So whatever goes on outside, man, this is good.
Yeah, you should tell them where your office is if they're in Southern California, Doug.
Yeah, we're in Irvine, California. And if somebody wants a referral, they can also call me, and I can also find a doctor for them. That would be neurological corrective care.
Yeah.
So Irvine, California. And come join us, follow us, ring the bell.
Yeah.
Share these, please. Because we're all about hope, man. We are hope dealers, and we're in a dark time, and we're going to shed light on this, and we're going to bring people back to hope, back to resurrecting their freedom, because that's what we're about. We're about freedom.
Yeah, we are. So just one last shameless plug to evolve spiritually, to gain the confidence, to come into presence, to learn how to get rid of your past. Go to You Are More Powerful, spell it out, YOUARE, morepowerful.com. Go to youaremorepowerful.com. There's a whole system there that will definitely evolve your consciousness. I always say we only have one problem in life, and that's our level of consciousness. If we can raise that, man, we can get above, and we realize things inside of us are way bigger than things outside of us. And then let's take care of our body and create some bookend rituals that you don't have to worry about what's in the middle, man. You begin and end your day in a way that creates an empowered person and an empowered life.
Perfect.
Thank you. Peace.